Hey y'all, welcome back to Love, Sweat, and Tears, Ingredients for Transformative Campus Leadership. Today I'm talking with Andrew Marotta, who has been a high school and middle school principal in his district for 19 years and is now kind of transitioning into a role of an administrator coach. He does that in his district, but he also does it across the nation as well, speaking at events. He's written several books. I can't wait for you to hear some of the stories that he tells. I loved talking to him because every message that he had was told in a story, and it just made it so memorable and so easy to listen to. And I know you're going to love it. So without further ado, let's dive in. Andrew Marotta, it is great to have you here on Love, Sweat, and Tears today. Now, are you finished with the school year, or are y'all still
We're
going?
still going. We go till deep in June, Beth. Deep.
Ooh, okay. Do you like that? Do you have a shorter summer? Do you start later also?
We're Memorial Day. Labor Day.
Okay.
Sorry, Labor Day. We're traditionally
Okay.
Labor Day.
Okay.
It's all I know. It's what I did when I was a student. It's what I've done. I
Mm-hmm.
hear these schools out west and different places. They're done on Memorial Day, and it's like wow, But then they're in school
Mm-hmm.
on August, 10th.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. We start school August 10th this
Get
year.
out!
So,
Wow.
yep. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but you know what, man? It's so hot here at that time, especially in August. August is the worst
Wow.
here. So it's like no one wants to be outside. No one wants to be doing we're ready to be back inside air conditioned buildings. Yeah. So, okay, we are here to talk all things principals, campus leadership. I can't wait to kind of dig into what you're doing right now. But before we do that, I want to hear a little bit about your background. And I would love to start with what you were like as a student in school.
Yeah, I was compliant, Beth. I was born in a strict Catholic family. I was the fourth kid. My brothers and sisters wore out the teaching staff before I got there. Uh, there was a reputation of a lot of Marotta. Uh,
Okay, I like
we're
that.
blessed with a personality and a
Mm-hmm.
boldness that has helped me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but
Mm-hmm.
I was the fourth one. We went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic school for 13 years, and my
Okay.
parents wanted that Catholic education, and I
Mm-hmm.
loved it. I loved school. I loved my teachers. We went. We had
Mm.
perfect attendance. School was canceled due to snow. We
Mm-hmm.
went. We
Sure.
they
Yeah.
were my parents were tough. There was no excuses. If I didn't have
Mm.
my homework done, I was in trouble at home. God forbid I got in trouble at school. I
Mm.
got double trouble at home. So there was a lot of
Mm.
support from my parents, but there was an expectation that we needed to
Yeah.
do well in school and we were to take it
Sure.
seriously. So we did that.
Sure. Where did that come from? Were your parents educators, or why did they have those really high expectations for
Yeah,
y'all?
I don't know. I think their parents, they were old
Mm.
school.
Mm.
They knew
Yeah.
education is the key. They both
Yeah.
were college graduates.
Okay.
And it was the expectation. I knew I was going to college,
Mm.
first, second grade. I
Okay.
knew that was my path. There wasn't really a choice. And if we didn't
Mm-hmm.
have our schoolwork done, or we were, nothing else was happening. There was no games, there was no teams, there was no sports.
Sure.
It's just
Yep.
how they were.
Yeah. So when was it that you kind of discovered a love for education, or did you know that as a student in high school? Did you find that out later in
Yeah,
life?
it's funny. I know exactly when it was. It was my sophomore year of college. I was coaching at a basketball camp in the summer, and I was the summer counselor. And I was like, wow, this is great. I love coaching these kids, right? We had a timeout bet, and I would teach you how to make a layup. The game would go on, and then you would make the layup, and you would look over at me and like, I did it. And I
Yeah.
was like, wow. And I just loved the
Yeah.
energy of the kids. And I
Yeah.
was kind of like, I really like this. How can I keep coaching basketball camp in the summer? And it was like,
Yeah.
well, why
Uh-huh.
don't you think about teaching? And My father was a pharmacist. My mother was a medical technologist. My
Okay.
brother went into chemistry.
Okay.
So it was kind of like, all right, I'll be
Okay.
a science teacher. I always liked science. Watching my dad, mix up stuff in the pharmacy. So it was right there,
Mm-hmm.
sophomore year, sophomore year of college. I was like, yep, and that was it.
All right. So then did you jump straight into the classroom after that? Like what was the transition into the
Yeah,
classroom like?
literally. I graduated in May. I was in grad
Mm-hmm.
school in the fall, and I wasn't
Okay.
certified. I just had graduated college. I was
Yeah.
observing in late September, early October. I was
Okay.
there probably 2 weeks, and I got paged to the principal's office. I was leaving, and I was like, "There's no way they're calling me. Like, there's got to be another Andrew Marotta here." The principal said the teacher just quit. Do you want the job? And I was like, I'm not certified. I don't know how to teach. Sure you do. You've been in
Uh-huh.
there 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm not certified. You'll be certified tomorrow. I was like, can I make a phone call? And I
Wow.
called my parents, and my dad said, Andrew, are you crazy? You telling me you don't have to student teach and
Mm.
you could start getting paid tomorrow and be certified and start teaching? You absolutely take
Yeah.
that job. And he said something that rang, in my ears. It's not
Mm-hmm.
how good the opportunity is; it's how good you are to the opportunity. So go in there and do a great job.
Mm.
And that
Mm.
was it.
Did you have a relationship with that principal that called you? Like why did they call you
Because
for
I was
that?
there. I was
Mm.
there. No, I did
Yeah.
not have a
Yeah.
relationship. They just knew there was another semi-adult in the room, and bam,
Yeah.
I was teaching the next day.
So what was that like? What were those students like receiving you, this young brand new teacher, into their
Yeah, I
classroom?
got my butt kicked for 9 months. I had a couple old school
Yeah.
mentors. I think they smelled fresh meat, and they tried to
Yeah.
take it to me. But that's how I learned, right? I had
Yeah.
some tough mentors that did not coddle me. Andrew, you better respond. You better call the
Mm.
parent. You better have a better lesson tomorrow. Don't take that, you know what from them. And they taught me how to survive. It was called the Frank Sinatra School, Beth. That if you could make it there, you can make it anywhere. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. That wasn't the name
Wow.
of the school. That was the
Okay,
name.
I was like,
That was the
what?
name, the informal name from the teachers. That you
Sure,
got to survive
sure.
there. Yeah,
So it was a
it
rough
was a rough
the whole
place.
the school
Yeah,
itself
yeah.
was rough. Yeah. So how long were you there at that campus, and when was it in your teaching career that you kind of transitioned out of the classroom and into administration?
Yeah, I was there for a few years. I transitioned to a middle school for a few years. New York City is a little different, but it was when I moved. Uh,
Oh, this was
yeah, it
in
was
the
in New York
city?
City. Yeah, it was in New York City. I grew
Okay.
up in Staten Island, New York, and
Okay.
it was when my wife and I moved in '05. We were
Okay.
moving, we were building a home. We
Mm.
knew that my wife wanted to stay home with our children, which we didn't have yet.
Mm.
So it was like, well, how can
Mhm.
we afford to do that? How can I make more income while being an
Sure.
educator? Boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom. So one thing led to another. I
Mm.
got the certification, but we were moving, and I literally we moved into our house at the beginning of May. I got the job up here in Port Jervis, New York, in April. The timing was incredible. So it
Wow.
worked out. But I became an assistant principal here in
Yeah.
Port Jervis, New York.
And is that where you
I'm
still are
here,
now?
baby. Port Pride. Surviving and
Wow. So
thriving.
how many years has
Yeah,
that
this is
been
my
now?
19th year.
Wow. That's a big deal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Man, and so you have been in administration at that school for nearly
You
20
see all this
years
gray hair,
now.
Beth? You see? Look at this. We're recording this on a Friday afternoon, and I looked at my calendar. I said, "What am
Yeah.
I crazy?" Uh, but I've grown to
Yeah.
love this. It's become a second home to me. We have done great
Mm.
work here, and I'm proud of our school community. But I'm proud. I look back at what
Yeah.
I've been through and the work was done. Yeah,
Mhm.
19 years, my 19th year.
Man, that longevity is just so great for a
Yeah.
campus. That's awesome.
You know the history
Um,
of things. You know why things were done.
yeah.
You know all the players. You know the ins and outs. I mean,
Yeah.
I have my students. When I was the high school principal for all those years, I'm the middle school
Mhm.
principal now. I have my high school students'
Okay.
children in middle school. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
I was their principal. They know how I am. And when
Yeah.
their child is saying, "Oh, Mr. Marotta is being this," they know me, so they're like, "No."
Uh-huh.
So that familiarity is good. It's a good thing.
I'm curious, how have things changed over your years there? Like what trends have you seen come and go? What has that been like being kind of at one place that long as things changed around you?
Yeah. It's been a change of good, right? I have a picture hanging here in my
Mm,
office. Where is it? It's somewhere here. I'm in a temporary office now, so everything's turned upside down. But it's a picture of green grass. It's just literally a green grass.
mm,
And I
mm-hmm.
keep it because I'm reminded that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, right? There was other opportunities at
Mm,
other
mm-hmm.
schools, and maybe this and maybe that, and ooh, I want to go to a
Mm,
good school. This is a good school. It is a good community. We have changed for the
mm,
better. Our budget consistently passing. Our campus. This was an old factory town, an old blue collar town. Everybody
mm-hmm.
smoked on the campus. The kids smoked, the adults
Yeah.
smoked. But when I got
Yeah.
here, I was like, "What is this? Smelled like an ashtray in the school. Like, what is
Yeah.
happening?" But after years
Yeah.
of fighting, I'm relentless, Beth. You're getting to know me a little bit, but I am relentless,
Mm-hmm.
and we
Mm,
clean this place up physically. First, the campus,
mm,
beautified the
mm-hmm.
campus, and then we cleaned up the
Mm,
academics. We're on our way. We used to have a
mm.
graduation rate in the low 60s, and we're almost at 90 now. And we're
Wow, that is a big
yeah, it was
deal.
a great journey, and that's why I'm proud. I'm proud of what we've done. Port Pride means a lot.
You said that you beautified the building and then kind of focused on the academics. Was that strategic or was that just kind of how things
Yeah,
happened?
it was a survival. We couldn't clean up what was happening in
Mm,
the classroom unless there was a
mm-hmm.
respect for the environment. If there was garbage all
Sure.
over, graffiti all over, if it says "F
Mm-hmm.
you" on the desk you're trying to read literature on,
Mm-hmm.
what
Yeah.
does it say about what you're trying to do? We cleaned it up. I was relentless
Mm-hmm.
with graffiti. Our custodians, we'd clean
Mm,
up. I'd be on the loudspeaker. I'm looking for some student volunteers to help clean up. Kids would come out. It took a long time to change the culture of it's not acceptable to treat
mm.
our campus like this. It became
Yeah.
a long time. I would have kids help plant flowers. I'd have kids help do things. And that kid that helped plant the
Mm-hmm.
flower, if anybody was damaging it, throwing a milk container in it, they'd say, "Yo, hey, I planted that. Don't be
Yeah.
littering there." And
Right.
it took a long time, but we weren't gonna allow it. Think about, Beth, when
Mm-hmm.
you go to stay at an Airbnb or you go to a
Mm-hmm.
restaurant, right? Number one, the first thing you do is check the reviews. But number two, if
Yep.
the foyer is dirty, if you open the front door to that Airbnb that
Yeah.
you can't wait to go to and it feels
Mm-hmm.
dirty, you are not going to have a good feeling about staying there. And I felt the same
Yeah.
way about our school. So
Yeah.
we really focused on cleaning it up. And once we did that, we really then focused on the academics of what was happening in the classrooms.
Mm. Is that something that you still fight, kind of that respect for the building and for the space, or has it kind of like baked into the ethos of the campus?
The second one, I've transitioned to the middle school now. I did 16 years at that high school, so I was ready for a change. So I've kind of handed that over. And again, things change. I'm not the principal anymore, so there's other focuses. But that is the expectation that has remained, which I'm very proud about.
Now, I know you also did some refereeing. I hear this story. You were in college, you found education, you went straight for it. How did you get roped into
Yeah,
refereeing?
yeah. That same basketball camp, one time
Yeah.
the guy
Okay.
was like, "Hey, Andrew, you want to ref this game after the camp?" And I'm like, "I'm not a ref. I'm a player. No, I'm not going to ref the
Yeah.
game." He's like, "Come
Hmm.
on, Andrew, you're tough. You know the game. You can run up and down well. I'm like, "Yeah." He's like,
Hmm.
"I'll pay you $25." I'm like, "What? You'll pay me $25? Yeah, and all I got to do is work 1 hour for $25?" Sure,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
the game started. I'm running up and down, and then there's a collision. Bam, two kids. And I'm looking at it like, "Oh, that's a foul." Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I got to blow the, and I blow the whistle, and I'm like, everybody
Yeah.
looked at me, and I'm like, yeah, that was a foul. And it was like, wow, I really like that. It's like a
Hmm.
conductor conducting an orchestra, all these moving parts, and then bam, you have to make a decision. and I loved it. I have ADD, Beth, undiagnosed. It's a superpower, not a disability. But that ADD and the action of the game and the fast movingness connected
Mm-hmm.
with me. I love the
Yeah.
running. I love the outlet. And it was an instant connection to feeling
Mm.
comfortable, as referees say, within those lines. People think it's chaos and everyone's yelling at you. There's a comfort
Mm-hmm.
in there of being in charge of that crazy orchestra, being in charge of that game,
Mm.
to know that you're good enough to do that. There was a comfort between the lines that I felt instantly.
Mm. Interesting. You don't hear that very
Yeah.
often.
Well, because people think it's like,
How?
oh, you're getting yelled at. There's
Yeah.
pressure. There's
Right.
this.
Right.
I thrived under that pressure. I was ready for
Mm.
that. I was the one, creating the conditions. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, it's cool.
cool. So you're doing that and administrating a school. How did those things like influence
Yeah,
each
good
other?
question. Good question. It was a balance. It was a balance of my time. It was a balance of my focus. There
Mm.
was certainly a large component here in Port Jervis that did not like the fact that I refereed. One of the components
Okay.
is I was allowed to take vacation days. You're allowed to take vacation days. If I
Mm.
wanted to jump on a plane and go to the beach, it was my vacation day. If I wanted to jump in a car and go ref a game in Virginia and drive back home overnight and be at school the next day, it was a vacation day. There was no
Mm-hmm.
dictating. I wanted to go home and go sleep for the day because it was my vacation day. I could do that. I
Mm-hmm.
had a freedom to do that. I had a right to do that. Some people didn't
Mm-hmm.
like that I was out refereeing. The games were on TV. He wasn't in school today. He's this guy on TV,
Mm-hmm.
ESPN. He wasn't at school. Uh, the flip side of
Mm-hmm.
that is the kids, and a lot of people loved it that they would put the ESPN on, and there's my
Mm.
principal. And the next
Yeah.
day, I was in North Carolina at 7:30 at night, and the next day I'm in the hallway at 7:30 in the morning, and they're like, "Mr. Marotta, I just saw you on TV. How'd you get here?"
Yeah.
And I'd say it's magic. But
Yeah.
I would hire a driver a lot of times, Beth. I drive quick, but even I drove home overnight from North Carolina. I'd have a driver.
Mm.
I'd sleep in the car, and those were long nights. But I wanted to get back for school, so when I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't miss 2 days in a row, I was able to get
Man.
there. But I thrived on it again. That energy, that as I
Yeah.
call it, being on the edge, right? Having a
Mm.
kid or a difficult situation at school was easy compared to having 20,000 people at University of North Carolina yelling at me the night before. A
Mm-hmm.
minor conflict in the hallway the next day is no big deal. Uh, so I was
Yeah.
ready to handle that. It was a lot of juggling. I dedicated my book, Tales from the Hardwood, to my wife. I would not have been able to do it
Mm.
without my wife, and my assistant principals. They would cover for me. If there was
Mm.
meetings, if
Yeah.
there was stuff, I'd be on my laptop the whole way in the car. After the game, I'd be back on my laptop, and then I forced myself to be more energized the next day. I was never like, oh, I'm so tired. I was up all night. Oh, I'm so tired. No way.
Yeah.
I was focused because I didn't want the naysayers saying, "Oh,
Sure.
he's really
Right.
dragging today." I didn't want that. Yeah.
Right.
So it was great. I loved it. It was a great run.
I hear you talking about surviving and thriving a lot, and it sounds like you've really learned how to do that in chaos, in overwhelm, in like excessive situations. Where does that come from for you? Like how is it that you've, I don't know, figured out how to thrive in all of the things going
Yeah,
on?
yeah. Thank you. Good question. Um, I grew up in a big family, Beth. I grew up in busy Staten
Yeah.
Island. If you weren't hustling to the table, you weren't getting food. My
Yeah.
baseball team, there was no kind of every kid plays, everybody gets a trophy. I didn't grow up in that environment.
Mm.
I tried out for my
Mm.
freshman basketball team. There was 100 kids that tried out, 100, and they took 12. That's a competitive
Oh,
environment as a 14-year-old, that I
yeah.
made the team. My
Mm-hmm.
dad and mom didn't give us an inch. You know, that was the environment I grew up in, survival of the fittest.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
believe you have to earn everything you get. Um, but those were decisions too. I could have not done any of that. I could have
Yeah.
gone home and gone to sleep. I could have gone home.
Mhm.
I live a full life, Beth. You know, I don't know if you ever seen in Seven Habits where the big rocks and the little rocks, the big
Mhm.
rocks in, and then they pour the little rocks, and then they even say, and there's a time for a cup of coffee, and they pour a liquid in there.
Mhm.
When it's all said and
Mhm.
done, I wanna know that I lived a full life, and I
Mhm.
did some fun things.
Mm.
But life is short, you know. I think
Yeah.
we regret the things we don't do versus the things
Mm.
I did. Like I don't look back at that career saying,
Mhm.
"Wow, it sucked refing all those games and doing all those things."
Mhm.
And, I went to California, I went to Texas, I went to
Mhm.
the Virgin Islands, I've been to Florida, I've been to Maine, it was a fun run, it was a cool thing, and I learned a lot about life in that journey.
Mm.
Being in those pressure situations, how to handle people being mad
Mhm.
at you, how to enforce
Mhm.
the rules when it's uncomfortable. And those are a lot of things that you
Mhm.
need as a school leader to do a good job. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, tell me more about that. Tell me what specifically what you learned about. You talk about the power of presence and how to harness
Yeah.
that. How did tell me some of that about how you learned that and how you teach
Yeah.
that.
I think you teach it you have to go through the experiences. You could tell a new principal all you want. Hey, you got
Mhm.
to be a good speaker. When you stand in front of 900 kids in the auditorium, you have to connect with them. You can't stand behind the podium and da 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 da. Well, on the
Mm.
court, when there's 15,000 people in the stands, you have to show strength without arrogance.
Mhm.
You have to show an energy that
Yeah.
you're into what you're doing. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing in school. If I walk down the hallway with my shoulders slumped and I just, hey kids, hey, hey, versus, come on guys, hey, let's go, let's have a great day, and I'm high fiving. There's presence there, there's energy there. I think that's contagious.
Mhm.
Um, enforcing the rules of
Mm.
organization in the school. No, you're not allowed to wear your hood in the hallway, and here's why. And I'm going to enforce the rules.
Mhm.
When I tell a kid on the court, "Hey, hands off! Take your hands off!" Right? I'm saying it in a way that registers that I'm serious, but I'm not screaming at them. In the
Mhm.
hallway, take your hood off. You understand the rules. I've explained those rules to you, Beth. And then do I call the
Mhm.
foul and give Beth detention? Or is the warning enough? Right? Is Beth having a
Mhm.
bad day?
Mhm.
Did Beth just break up with her boyfriend and she's crying and that's why she's got a hood on? So am I
Mm.
the non observant
Mm.
principal that doesn't know Beth just broke up with her boyfriend
Mm.
versus, hey, Beth, I know you're upset. Come on in here. Let you calm down. Let me get you something to eat and drink. I'm going to give you
Mm.
15 minutes that you could sit in your hood and have a cradle on you, and then we got to get moving. Things like that you know
Mm.
when to blow the whistle and when not to. You know when to
Mhm.
enforce the rules. And then the teachers and the kids in the hallway. Oh, he's letting Beth wear her hood. I'm going to wear mine. Well, no, Beth
Yeah.
had a different situation going on, so don't throw that in my face. And you,
Mhm.
you just learn to navigate these. They can be difficult situations.
Mm.
I learned one from the other, and they also helped me de-stress. Beth, when I was on the court, I wasn't thinking
Mm.
about that kid that refused to take his hood off, and when I was in school the
Mhm.
next day, I wasn't thinking about the call that I made that was wrong the night before. I was focused on
Mm.
being where my feet are and being present because I had to be my best self
Mm.
in those moments. If you're not a good principal,
Mhm.
you're gonna get steamrolled. If you're not a good referee, you're gonna get
Mm.
steamrolled, and I wasn't gonna have that
Mhm.
happen to me.
Mm. That reminds me of that relentlessness that you mentioned earlier, and in the previous conversation you talked about there being a big difference between being relentless and being unbreakable. Can you tell me more about that difference between those two things and um, why you strive to be relentless rather than
Yeah,
unbreakable?
you got a good memory, Beth. Good question. Love your questions. Yeah, we all break. We all make mistakes. We all
Mm.
do it. You're
Mm.
not gonna, you could have a great party at your house. Someone's gonna break one of those fancy wine glasses. They're good. Is that going
Yep.
to ruin
Yep.
your party? Is your party unbreakable? No, no.
Mm.
But you're going to have a relentless drive to have an amazing event. Um, if you shoot for the
Mm.
moon and you miss, you're going to land amongst the stars. If there is a willingness to work, if there is a willingness
Mm.
that I'm going to clean up this school, they are not going to continue to smoke in these bathrooms. I am going to have flowers in front that are not going to get trampled on. And if they trample on them, I'm going back to get the card from the district office. I'm going to Home Depot and I'm coming back here at 7 o'clock at night and I'm going to replant them. And I'm going to be standing right in front of those flowers tomorrow, the next day, saying, hey, make sure you walk around. We have Port Pride. We're you know, um, I've had some experiences that left an impact on me. My dad was a
Mm.
tough guy. Beth, he had
Mhm.
a pharmacy. It's the first story in my book, The Principle: Surviving and Thriving. The first story,
Mhm.
and he had a pharmacy. It was in a bad neighborhood. I grew up in a rough neighborhood, and
Mhm.
there was graffiti on the building. And my dad, I get there,
Mhm.
I did everything in the pharmacy, running around. Um, he'd say,
Mhm.
Andrew, go paint the graffiti. I said, all right. I go out there and I paint over it. It's a nice tan wall right there. Next day, graffiti's back. Andrew, go paint
Mhm.
it. Dad, I just did it yesterday. Andrew, go paint
Yeah.
it. Paint it again. Next day, they come back. This happened for about a week. Give me the paint
Mm.
can. Andrew,
Mhm.
Dad, just leave it. It doesn't matter. They're going to keep coming
Yeah.
back. And he said,
Right.
no, this is my store. I'm not having that. I'm not having that graffiti on my store. You paint it, or
Yeah.
I'm going to get somebody that will. This is your job. Go paint it. And then you know what happened, Beth?
Mm.
The next day there was no paint. There was no
Mm.
graffiti. And
Mm.
he was relentless in having the front of his store clean. And
Yeah.
I understood the importance of that. Even though there was graffiti in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
we were making our shop great. And I had to sweep the
Yeah.
front, and so you had your initial question, right? Well, how do you learn it? You learn just by experiences. But I want my kids here in Port Jervis to have an amazing school experience,
Mhm.
and I have a direct impact on
Mhm.
that. If they feel that the school is
Yeah.
dirty, if they feel that the bathroom smells like there's an uncomfortableness that kids don't want to be here. Well, I'm trying to make a school where kids want to get in, not they can't wait till they get out, and I'm in
Yeah.
charge of that. That's a
Yeah.
big responsibility. What
Yeah.
do they say in Star Wars? What Yoda say? With great power comes great responsibility. Well, I don't use that word power with a position, but I know there's great responsibility in my role to make this a great place, and it's
Yeah.
my job. Because if I don't care, why should anybody else care?
Yeah. How do you encourage your teachers? Do you find that your staff gets discouraged, or do you find that they kind of, see your relentlessness and join you in that?
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that,
Mhm.
but I try to create ownership. Think about a rental car,
Mhm.
Beth. Right? You rent the car. You're
Mhm.
not washing it. You're not changing the oil. You hit the curb with the
Mhm.
tire. You don't really care because you're renting. When you
Mhm.
own the car,
Yeah.
you treat it a little differently. I'm trying to create owners here, not people that rent
Mm.
in terms of their work.
Mhm.
I just work
Yeah.
here. That drives me crazy when people say that. I need you to be an owner
Mm.
in what we're doing. How do you
Yeah.
create care? That's a challenge, right? People do get discouraged, right?
Mhm.
Maybe they don't get a position they
Yeah.
think they should get. Maybe they don't get to teach the class.
Mhm.
They think they get disgruntled, right? Well, screw him, screw
Mhm.
them.
Yeah.
Um, I think me showing energy, me showing up early, me being visible, me caring. I think
Mm.
there is some
Mhm.
contagiousness there. I think
Yeah.
there's an organic spirit there that is intentional on my part.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to
Yeah.
create owners, and then I'm trying to create. I love Todd Whitaker. Todd Whitaker says, "Well, how do you make the
Mm.
other teachers like the best teachers, right? How do you celebrate those
Yeah.
great teachers that are doing it? That doesn't make the other people feel
Right.
bad, but makes them say,
Right.
"Ooh, how do I do more of that?" Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think it's important that we
Yeah.
celebrate the good things going on. I think it's important we model it.
Mhm.
I see something great in the classroom. I
Yeah.
want to I want to push it out there, saying, "Hey, check out this great resource Teacher Beth is doing in this." things like that.
Yeah. I hear you in almost all of the answers that you're giving me. You're giving me some kind of story where I can see, how you drew these conclusions and where they come from. Do you use that a lot as a
All the time.
principal?
Stories,
Mm.
facts tell, stories sell, right?
Mhm.
And I'm selling Port Jervis. I'm selling
Mm.
a belief in what we're doing is right. And then when the numbers match, hey, look at this graduation rate. Hey, look at this participation rate.
Yeah.
There's the evidence. Wow. Okay, it is
Yeah.
working. When I get emails like
Yeah.
I got today from a parent,
Mhm.
you don't get a lot of pats on the backs in this job, but when you get them, it's like, wow, I know what I'm doing is having
Mm.
an impact. And you have to have that self
Yeah.
belief that not that you're doing everything perfect, right? Back to your unbroken versus relentless.
Mhm. Mhm.
Not every parent is saying that, but the ones that do.
Right.
And another one with that, Beth, I believe in the five SWs, along with the,
Yeah, tell me about
yeah,
that.
sometimes it will, sometimes it
Mhm.
won't. So what? Stick with it. Somebody is waiting, right? Those five SWs.
Mm.
And that goes back to being relentless because you got to get the next one. When I never had a perfect game
Mhm.
as a referee. You never got every call right. That's
Mm.
unbreakable, right? The goal was to get the
Yeah.
next one right, and that is being relentless to
Mm.
try to get the play correct, being relentless and trying to get your relationships right here in
Yeah.
school. The situational things. I bet the other day I had a very tricky situation that a special needs student caused some vandalism in the bathroom with
Mm.
some items in the bathroom. If you're following along,
Okay. Sure.
and
Mhm.
that was
Mhm.
tricky. How do you
Sure.
hold that kid accountable who was angry, who doesn't
Yeah.
know how to process that anger, and did something highly
Yeah.
inappropriate in the bathroom? And we tried to
Mhm.
navigate that, but I wasn't going to have that in my bathroom, regardless of who
Mhm.
you are. But that kid had to be handled a little differently
Mhm.
than someone else. So having that situational awareness to try to get these things right, I think
Mhm.
was important.
I want to talk more about surviving and thriving and why that concept was central to the book that you wrote for principals. Um, creating this campus culture and creating this place that you can survive and thrive in. Where did that lesson come from for you, and why is it so important?
Yeah, you got good questions.
I
Yeah, good
try.
question.
I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm
I
trying.
I go very quickly a lot. I want to be quick, but not in a hurry. I do
Mm,
have some spaces and places in my life where I can reflect, Beth, where I can kind
mm,
of have some quiet time. I have a little getaway here, an
okay.
hour from where I work, that I go. It's an Airbnb, and I
Mm,
sit quiet. And I like kind of vision boards. And when I
okay.
wrote the book, back in 2015, 2016, when I was kind of thinking like, I like to kind of throw a lot of things almost like on a canvas, and who do I
Mhm.
represent? What do I
Mm,
stand for? As I was kind of
yeah.
building this brand, thinking about it, I wanted something that was evergreen. I wanted something that people could relate
Mm,
to. I wanted something that was real to me, not
mhm,
something I was trying to be, but something I am. I could be proud of, that my kids and my wife could be proud of, my parents.
mhm.
And I just kind of, I don't, I like to have what's called downloads. John Gordon talks about downloads. I get these downloads in my head. I always keep my notebook. I always
Mhm.
have Siri going. I'm making reminders, post-it notes. I got all,
Mhm.
and it just came to me. I don't remember the exact
Hmm.
moment, but I can tell you where I'm at right now, Beth. I don't know if the visual. I just got this tattoo a couple weeks ago. Yeah, and
Ooh.
my logo, and then I have my children and my
Wow.
wife's name on here. So I know where I'm
Yeah.
at now. That I'm all in on
Mm,
the surviving and thriving. But the points the things on my circle, the excellence and energy, enthusiasm,
yeah.
extra effort, all of those kinds of things I
Yeah.
stood for. I had a graphic designer kind of put it together for me, and I'm like, yeah, that's it.
Oh man.
It just kind of
Uh-huh.
came, but I need that quiet time. I'm like the horse with the blinders. I
Mm.
need that focus, that quiet
Yeah.
focus. And I kind
Mm-hmm.
of just, I can work well in those quiet things. And it just kind of came because this
Hmm.
job will kill you. This job, you got
Yeah.
to be a tough son of a gun, and in the same day, in the same hour, in the same period, you could be surviving and thriving. So
Yeah.
that mentality of that, the five SWs and the relentlessness, I think goes to that.
Yeah, I love it. And, I mean, I don't need to tell principals why that's important. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, there's so much that comes at you from all of these different stakeholders and people that all want different things and all want you to serve them.
Hmm.
Trying to balance that can be
Hmm.
crushing. I'd love to hear about how you manage that, how you manage building relationships with your students and your teachers and your parents and your district. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it looks like visibility. Um,
Okay.
some leaders lead from the back, some leaders lead from the
Mhm.
front. I'm a front person. I want to be the voice on the
Okay.
answer machine. I want to be the
Okay.
call going home. I'm very visible. I want to
Mhm.
provide clear messages of what's accepted and what's not accepted. Right? What is Port Pride? What does that mean? What does it
Mm.
look like? I
Mhm.
run a workshop here in Port Jervis called Port Jervis Port Pride in Action. Right? What is it? What is that? What does it look
Okay.
like? I think you have to
Wow.
be authentic. I'm not going to say something to you,
Mhm.
Beth, that I'm not going to be to somebody else. I literally wear my
Mhm.
heart on my sleeve. And
Yep.
and again, some people don't like that, but that's authentic. I am who you're getting.
Yeah.
I think there's
Mhm.
got to be a humbleness of I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I want to be
Mhm.
the hardest working person here. There's some really hard workers here. Um, but I
Mm.
want to get people rowing in the right direction. And I think they know that. I think there's an authenticity. There was
Mm.
5 principals in 3 years before I got here. And
Whew.
I got the question a lot, well, where are you going next? Where,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
next? And I said, well, I'm going right here. And they were like, well, no one comes and stays here, Andrew. Where you going? And,
Yeah.
and I'm proud that I did stay here and I earned the respect of the people here because I was an
Yeah.
outsider. I moved from New York City. I was not a Port
Mhm.
Jervian. I, I am
Sure.
now, and that takes
Yeah.
time. That takes consistency. That takes showing up. Um, but back to your question, I think you're authentic in your actions when you're constantly
Mhm.
doing good things for kids and people. It doesn't reach everybody, but it reaches those ones. Think of that starfish story, right? Why are you throwing that starfish back in the water? Well, I'm
Mm.
saving that one. Well, you got all these starfish here on the beach. You can't save them all.
Yeah.
I can save that one.
Yeah.
I'm making
Mm.
authentic, impactful, intentional actions that I think people know are real.
So to stay in the game as long as you have, you talked a little bit about going to your Airbnb and having that quiet time to kind of balance the chaos. What else do you do to make sure that you have energy to give, to make sure that you show up every day with that energy to fill this role that you've created for yourself? And how can other principals do
Yeah,
that?
you can't pour from an empty cup, right, Beth? Uh,
Right.
I read The Miracle Morning by Hal Arod. So I
Okay.
practiced savers. In The Miracle Morning, I learned about savers every day
Okay.
before school, Beth. Every day. I got to do it every day. Silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. I'll say them again.
Mm.
Silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. I do those 6 things
Mm.
every day and they fill my bucket. I have to tell myself I'm good
Mm.
enough, right? Here's an affirmation, right? Put your
Mhm.
hand up, Beth. Hey, do it with me, right?
Okay.
I, no, you got to
I.
do it with your fingers here. Ready?
Oh, okay.
I
I
can do
can
this.
do
I can
This.
do this. That's an affirmation, right? Before I go into that meeting, when I'm
Mm-hmm.
shaving in the morning, I look at myself. I can do this. I'm going to be a great principal today. I visualize myself being a
Mm,
great principal today. I see myself in the hallway high fiving kids and putting a smile on my face and walking into a classroom and
mm,
saying, Beth, you're a great teacher. Thank you for everything. Smiling at them,
mm.
showing them I want to be here. I'm glad you're here. I hope you have a great day, right? I got that exercise in. I do some short readings and I do a lot of talk to text. So that's my scribing a lot.
Mm.
But
Okay.
I always do a gratitude, a couple lines about gratitude every morning. When you lead with gratitude, when it's on your mind, you're thankful for what you have. It's currently right now
Mm.
3:42 on a Friday afternoon, Beth, and I'm meeting my wife at 4:45 today. And we're going to go for a
Mm.
walk. No cell phone, no kids, no nothing. We're going to go for a walk and just have quiet time, her and I.
Yeah.
So I schedule all of these things. I'm very
Yeah.
intentional
You
about my
really do.
time, and you got to schedule it because if you're floating around like a seed in the air in the summertime and it's just letting the wind take you where you're at, it's like
Yeah.
scrolling on your phone with Facebook. You get lost in that.
Right.
Whereas very
Right.
intentional about my time.
I want you to tell me about hats. I know this is kind of something that you've got cooking. Tell me, you do these things to make sure that you have the energy to pour from your cup. So then how do you do
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Well, yeah, the hats is coming. It's coming summer 2023. Heartfelt acts for teachers,
Ooh,
students, and staff. Oh, you were asking about.
yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the.
No, 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 no. That's no, that's what I was
Oh, okay,
asking about.
yeah,
Yes, no,
yeah,
tell
yeah,
me. I want
yeah.
to.
So
Yeah.
that's my latest project. It's coming out this
Mm-hmm.
summer. I wrote it with Jay Billy and Brian McCann, two school leaders here from the
Mm,
Northeast. But that's what it is. Hats, heartfelt acts for
mm,
teachers, students, and staff. What are things that you can do, like you said, to help fill
mm-hmm.
their bucket? One quick
Yeah.
story. We have a special needs class. I love those kids. I
Okay.
just played Uno with them here on Friday afternoon. It was great. But I
Mm,
watched the documentary about the first person with Down syndrome who ran a Ironman, not a little. He ran an Ironman. Wow.
sure.
I was like, well,
Yeah.
I can't do an Ironman with these guys,
Yeah.
but I want to do something with them. So we did our
Mm,
community 5K. Uh,
wow.
3.2 miles. It runs through our campus. We exercise with the
Mm,
kids. We worked up from a half a mile to three-quarters of a mile to a mile and a half to 2 miles was the most we
mm,
did training. We got them shirts, we got water, we got
yeah.
this, we had cheering people, and
Mm,
we did it on that Sunday. We did it, and those kids did a 5K,
wow.
and it was awesome. And that was one
Yeah.
example of a heartfelt act that I felt could have a
Mm,
deep impact, not only for those kids, but
yeah.
for the other kids that might look at them and say, oh, it's that kid, or oh, those kids achieved
Mm,
something that a lot of people didn't think they
yeah.
could. And to
Yeah.
me, that is a huge win. And
Yeah.
again, an intentional, heartfelt act. So the book has
Mm-hmm.
100+ of those types of stories and things that you
Wow.
could do in schools to inspire a lot of people.
Oh man, that's awesome. Where have you kind of gotten your ideas for that over the years? Do you find inspiration from other principals? Do you just get ideas? Do you see teachers doing this for other teachers? Like, what are some of the ways that you've found these different things over the
Yeah.
years?
I read Teach Like a Pirate years ago by Dave Burgess, Beth.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
in that book, he talks about opening your RAS, your reticular
Mm.
activating system. That is the filter in your
Mm.
brain, right? I was a science teacher, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thinking about, and my
Mm-hmm.
brain is a turbocharged Tesla. I got this thing like it's unbelievable. It goes, and I've learned to control that. But
Mm-hmm.
when you open your RAS to look for something specific, it's the filter in your brain. I'm constantly
Mm-hmm.
looking for these types of little things that I could do that have a deep
Mm.
impact. I'm here in my office, Beth. These are all little
Mm-hmm.
birthday cards that are going out to my staff.
Oh my
You would
goodness.
think like, birthday card, like people appreciate that, and it doesn't just say happy birthday. You write a
Yeah.
note telling them how good They do. I have a
Mm.
teacher here. I don't know if I have the sign here. I have a teacher here who writes in calligraphy. Who every birthday he puts a big
Mm.
sign on their door. It probably takes him 3 minutes to do the sign in this nice calligraphy. He just paints it, boom, and he tapes it. When that teacher comes in
Yeah.
the next day, like, wow, that's incredible. So I look for those things. So like I asked him, hey
Yeah.
man, can we put that in the book? And that's in Hats about the calligraphy. Um, when
Oh.
you're looking for them, you find them.
Yeah.
When you're looking for stories, you
Yeah.
find them. They just kind of
Mm.
come your way. I was in Florida recently,
Mm.
and when you're in Florida on the coast, you watch the sunset or you watch the sunrise. Well, that got me looking on weather.com. When does the sunrise? Well, this time of year, it's a minute later each day. So it got me
Mm.
thinking.
Oh.
Wow, I got one more minute. And imagine if you had one more minute in real time every day. And I wrote a blog about that, about what would you do with
Mm.
one more minute, right? One more hug, one
Mhm.
more email, one more impactful action, one more high five, one more
Mhm.
visit to a classroom, one more I love you.
Mhm.
Think about that. And
Mhm.
you're not getting a minute in real time. You're getting a minute of more daylight.
Mhm.
But what could you do to make an impact
Mhm.
on other people? And that was
Yeah.
just these. I'm blessed to get these downloads. My brain is a blessing and a
Mm.
curse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you have any systems in place for kind of, as you're doing these things, making sure that there aren't people that kind of fall through the cracks, or maybe the wallflower students that don't get seen? What do you do to kind of prevent that, to make sure that everyone feels a part of the community?
Yeah, I think you have to ask too, right? I can't reach everybody. I
Mm.
know that there are
Mhm.
kids here that I
Yeah.
just don't know their names, and I'll go up to them.
Mhm.
It's June 20, and I'll say,
Mhm.
tell me your name again. I'm so sorry. Like that's embarrassing. I feel terrible. I don't know the kid's name, but there are some kids I just haven't made a connection. But like an
Mhm.
activity that we do with the staff, uh,
Mhm.
we do a survey with the kids, right? Um, whether it's on paper, whether it's Google Form, you know, name somebody who you have a connection with in the building, right? We're doing this anonymously, but
Mm.
then, you know, yet, do you have somebody that you can connect with us in this building? And if they write no, and we're going through that data, we are reaching out to that kid. We
Mhm.
are telling the parent, hey, your kid didn't have a
Mm.
connection here. We want them to join a club. We want them. We're going to intend, an adult is going to bring that kid to the art club. They're going to bring him to the cooking
Mm.
club. They're going to bring him to the track team and say, hey, man, we got to get you involved and try to
Yeah.
force it. Is it going to stick? Not everyone does, right? Sometimes it will,
Yeah.
sometimes it won't. So what? Someone's waiting, you got to stick with it. But that's an activity where you could catch people. That's an activity where
Mhm.
when you ask, right, asking the right questions. Do you feel pride in your school? 10 is a yes, 0 or 1 is a no, right? If I'm getting a 4.2,
Mhm.
something's wrong, Beth. If I'm getting an
Yeah.
8.2 and 8.7, okay. All right, good. We're in the right direction. But if I'm not asking the question and I'm
Yeah.
just running around saying, go Port, 2 claps, you gotta get
Right.
you gotta get feedback. And that feedback can
Yeah.
look like a lot of different ways. So you got to ask the right questions. But your important thing, is everyone feel inspired here? Does everyone feel ownership here? No. Can I get every one of them? No. Here's another example, Beth. Years ago, I did this college banner project. I wanted all my staff
Okay.
to have their college banner up. I was relentless. I would put your name, your major, the years you went there, banners. I was calling
Mhm.
colleges, this and that. Now it's December.
Mhm.
I'm still missing these 6 people. Hey, hey, Beth,
Sure. Yeah.
I've asked you 6 times for your college banner. Well, Marotta, I'm
Yeah.
I'm not paying that. I'm not getting that. I think your idea is silly. I'm not doing it. I don't
Mhm.
want people to know where I went to college.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, you know what, Beth? I'm gonna purchase it myself. I looked at your transcript where you went. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, college, so and so. Would you send me a banner? Sure, Mr. Marotta. Bam, and I put it up myself. There are some people that just aren't going to do it, and I don't
Yeah.
put a lot of time or stress in there, I kind of make it, make what I can happen on my own. But there are some that are just not going to get, and
Yeah.
I can't devote all that attention to that person, but I don't want them falling through
Mhm.
the cracks either.
So you've got this job, which you seem like you're working 90 hours a week at. And then you're also doing all of this other work to support other principals. Can you tell me about that? What you're doing, what you're writing, how you kind of got into this principal coach role, and what you're doing with
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Thank you, Beth. And this has been a great interview. Again, back in 2014, 2015, I felt that inspiration to write that book, The Principle Surviving and Thriving. And then the book came out in
Mm.
2016, and people said, "Hey, do you do workshops?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Hey, can we get you? How much is it?" I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know.
Wow.
And I didn't even have the workshop. And they were like, "Well, what are you going to talk on?" I'm
Yeah.
going to talk about the principle, surviving and thriving. And I built the
Yeah.
workshop, and I started doing workshops. And again, when I refereed, I put all my heart and energy in there. And then I ran off the court, I showered, and I ran out of the arena. And that was it.
Hmm.
Whereas when I do a workshop now, there are hugs, there are tears, there is an emotional impact. And I loved it. I loved that I was helping other people. And over the next 3 years, I transitioned. I'm going to say I don't want to ref anymore. I want to do this. I'm a
Yeah.
speaker. I'm an author. I've developed over a dozen kind of workshops and keynotes, and I love to present at schools and conferences. And there's an energy there. I love telling stories in my presentations, making people laugh. Like Beth, what do you call an educator who's afraid to pass gas in public? A
Tutor.
private tutor. I mean, come on,
Oh,
and
geez.
you got to make people laugh,
That's good.
right? Uh, but
Yeah.
I love presenting, so I do that. And actually, my district, I've been a principal here 19 years. Starting July 1, I'm transitioning to a job with a little less time commitment, the director of academic services and communication, which is going to
Mm.
allow me some more time to present. My superintendent knows I have this passion for it. I love
Yeah.
writing the books, and I'm blessed to be able to do both now. So I will transition to that position
Yeah.
after 19 years as a principal, to be able to do a
Wow.
little bit more of both.
Oh man, how does that feel to kind of start that transition away from being on campus so
Yeah,
much?
it's cool. I mean, I'm signing the end of the
Yeah.
year awards and things, and when it says Andrew Marotta Principal, and I'm kind of saying, wow, this is going to be the last ones here. It's a little emotional, but I'm a
Yeah.
front windshield guy, Beth. I look through the front windshield. I know that if I can help make a principal better or assistant principal better and believe in themselves more, that's a great impact. That's a great thing that I'm thrilled to be able to do. So I'm really excited.
Oh, we've kind of come up on our time here. But before we go, I want to ask, is there anything else that you would really love to tell our audience, or anything else, any kind of parting words that you would have that you wish principals could hear more?
Yeah, that they have everything they need inside of them. We all
Mm.
need coaches. We all need mentors. We all need guides. But they have the skills, and to add that commitment to be relentless to do it. Schools need you. The kids need you. Your communities need you. It's not a 9 to 5 job. It is a all in a job, and they can do it. You
Mm-hmm.
can do it, and
Mm.
that's the message I think people need to hear. They need to be celebrated for their efforts. They need autonomy, but that they have it. Some of the people don't believe that
Mm.
assistant principal is thinking about, I think maybe I could be
Yeah.
principal. Like they can, right? You just got to jump in the
Mm.
pool and you're going to be relentless to learn how to swim. Uh, they
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Andrew. As people listen to this and they want to hear more from you or read something, or maybe even like get you to come speak to their community, how can people do that?
Very accessible, Beth. AndrewMarotta.com with all my information. I'm on Twitter at AndrewMarotta21.
Okay.
And then my email is AndrewMarottaLLC at gmail.com. But any of those ways, you can get in touch with me on my website or DM me on Twitter. But I'd love to be in touch with you. I'd love to do a book study with you. I'd love to get books into the
Mm,
hands of your teachers or your administrators,
yeah.
and I love to connect with them. There are college professors that are using the books in their courses, but all
Wow.
of those kinds of things to be able to make those connections. And the traveling, I
Yeah.
love it. I love jumping on a plane and coming to Texas, coming to wherever
Yeah.
to make these things happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. This was so wonderful. I really appreciate you spending time with
Yeah,
us.
thank you, and best to you, Beth, on your journey.
Thanks so much. Bye. What did I tell you? What a storyteller and his I can do this. I'm gonna use that. I won't forget that. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure talking with you. As always, all of those books that he mentioned and the different resources that he has available, all of that will be linked in the show notes in the description. You can find all of that there. As always, this whole thing is produced by Erwin Solbach, and he also did the music that you can hear right now. Our logo and design work is from Alana Kanoy, and this whole shebang is a labor of the most dearest love from the folks at Responsive Learning. Y'all have a good rest of your day.